Talk Ava. Learn English with confidence.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Talk Ava, where you learn real English through real conversations. If this is your first time here, you are in the right place. And if you are coming back, it is great to have you with us again.
Yes, welcome. Talk Ava is designed to help you understand how English actually works in everyday situations. We focus on clear explanations, simple language, and real examples, so you can improve your speaking and listening step by step.
Before we begin, a quick reminder. If you enjoy learning English with us, make sure to like this episode, share it with a friend who is also learning English, and subscribe to Talk Ava so you do not miss future episodes. Your support helps this new channel grow.
And today's topic is something that almost every English learner struggles with at some point. It looks simple, but it can be confusing when you try to use it in real conversations.
We are talking about the difference between three very common words: very, to, and enough.
These words are everywhere in English. You hear them all the time, but many learners use them in the wrong way, especially to and very.
Yes, and the problem is that the sentences can sound correct, but the meaning changes in a way that you might not expect.
For example, saying, "It is very hot," and "it is too hot" may sound similar, but they are not the same at all.
Exactly. One is just information, and the other one suggests there is a problem.
And then we have enough, which adds another layer of confusion, especially because the position of the word changes in the sentence.
So in this episode, we are going to break everything down step by step. We'll explain each word clearly, give you real-life examples, and help you understand how to use them naturally.
We will also show you common mistakes and give you practice so you can test your understanding.
By the end of this episode, you will be able to clearly explain the difference between very, to, and enough, and you will feel more confident using them in your own sentences.
And as you listen, try to stay active. Think about your own examples. You can pause and repeat sentences out loud. That will help you remember much better.
Also, we would like to hear from you. Tell us where you are listening from. It is always interesting to see how many different countries are part of the Talk Ava community.
All right, let us begin. This is one of those lessons that can quickly improve how natural your English sounds.
So, before we explain anything, I want to start with a simple situation from my own day. It actually happened this morning, and it made me think about today's topic.
That sounds interesting. What happened?
I stopped at a small cafe to get coffee before coming here. Everything looked good at first, but when I took my first sip, I immediately realized something was wrong.
What was the problem?
The coffee was too hot. I could not drink it at all. I had to wait for several minutes.
That already sounds like a perfect example of what we're going to talk about today.
Yes, exactly. But here's the interesting part. While I was waiting, I heard another customer say, "This coffee is very hot," and I noticed something important.
Let me guess. The meaning was different.
Yes, completely different. One person said, "too hot," which means there is a problem. The other person said, "very hot," which is just information.
That is a very common confusion. Many learners think to and very are the same, but they're not.
And it doesn't stop there. A few minutes later, when my coffee cooled down, I said to myself, "Now it's warm enough."
So in just one situation, you used all three words, very, to, and enough.
Yes, and that's why this topic is so important. These words are small, but they appear in everyday conversations all the time.
And if you use them incorrectly, your meaning can change in a big way.
Exactly. You might say something positive, but it sounds negative. Or you might try to describe a problem, but it sounds neutral.
So today, we're going to make this completely clear. You will understand how each word works and how to use them correctly in real situations.
Before we move forward, I want to ask you something directly. I want you to think about your answer and also write it in the comments.
Think about your day today. What was one thing that was too much, one thing that was very good, and one thing that was just enough? Write 3 sentences using to, very, and enough. This is a very useful exercise because it connects the grammar to your real life.
Yes, and when you use your own experiences, it becomes easier to remember.
For example, someone might say, the traffic was too heavy, my lunch was very good, and I had enough time to finish my work.
Exactly. Simple sentences, but very powerful for learning.
So in this segment, we are not focusing on rules yet. We're just helping you notice how these words appear naturally in daily life.
Because once you notice the pattern, the explanation becomes much easier to understand.
And in the next segment, we will start with the easiest one, which is very.
All right, let us begin with the first word, which is very. This is usually the easiest one to understand, and it is a good starting point before we move to the more confusing ones.
Yes, very is simple, but it is also extremely common. You will hear it everywhere in English, and you probably already use it quite often.
So let us define it clearly. Very is an intensifier. That means it makes an adjective stronger, but it does not change the meaning in a negative or positive way. It simply adds intensity.
That is the key idea. It adds strength, but it does not create a problem. It is neutral.
Let us look at a very simple example. I am tired. Now we add very. I am very tired.
The meaning is still the same, you are tired, but now the listener understands that your level of tiredness is higher.
Another example. She is happy. She is very happy.
Again, no problem, no negative meaning. It's just stronger.
Let us build more examples so you can feel this clearly. The movie was very interesting. The weather is very cold. This book is very useful.
All of these sentences are just giving information. They are not complaining, they are not showing a problem, they are simply describing the situation more clearly.
A useful way to think about very is like a volume button. You're turning the volume up, but the type of sound does not change.
That is a helpful image. You are increasing intensity, not changing meaning.
Now, here is something interesting. In spoken English, people sometimes say very, very to make something even stronger.
For example, it is very, very cold, or I am very, very tired.
This is common in casual speech, especially when people want to emphasize something strongly.
However, there is a better way to express this in more natural English. Instead of repeating very, you can use a stronger adjective.
For example, instead of saying very, very tired, you can say exhausted. Instead of very, very cold, you can say freezing.
This makes your English sound more natural and more advanced.
So, here is a simple rule. You can use very, very in casual speaking, but if you want to sound more natural, try to learn stronger adjectives.
Let us compare quickly. Very, very hot versus boiling. Very, very hungry versus starving.
You can see that one word replaces the repetition and gives a clearer image.
So to summarize this part, very is simple. It makes an adjective stronger. It does not create a problem. It is neutral information.
Now that we are clear on very, let us move to the second word, which is to. This is where many learners start to make mistakes.
Yes, because to looks similar to very, but the meaning is very different.
Let us define it clearly. To means more than needed, and this creates a problem.
That is the most important idea. When you use to, there is always a negative result, even if you don't say it directly.
Let us look at a basic example. It is very hot.
It is too hot.
These are not the same. Very hot is just information. Too hot means there's a problem.
For example, it is too hot to sleep. Now the problem is clear. The heat stops you from sleeping.
Another example. The coffee is too hot to drink. The bag is too heavy to carry.
In each case, something is preventing an action. That is the role of to.
You can think of to as a signal that something has crossed a limit.
Yes, it goes beyond what is acceptable or comfortable.
Let us build a few more examples to make this very clear. The music is too loud. I cannot concentrate.
The room is too small. We cannot fit inside. He speaks too fast. I cannot understand him.
Notice the pattern. There is always a result, often starting with I cannot or we cannot.
Even when the result is not spoken, it is understood. If you say, "This bag is too heavy," the listener knows there is a problem.
Now, here's a very common mistake. Some learners use to in positive situations.
For example, they say, "The food is too delicious."
Grammatically, it is possible, but the meaning becomes strange. It suggests that the food is so delicious that it creates a problem.
This can sound like a joke, but in normal situations, it is better to say, "The food is very delicious," or "really delicious."
So remember this clearly. Use to only when there's a real problem or a negative effect.
And in the next part, we will look at enough, which completes this system and connects everything together.
Now let's move to the third word, which is enough. This is where many learners start to feel a little confused, especially because the position of the word changes in the sentence.
Yes, and that is completely normal. Enough is slightly different from very and to, but once you understand the logic, it becomes much easier to use.
So let us start with the main idea. Enough means the right amount, not too much, not too little, just what is needed.
That's the key concept. When you use enough, you are saying that something meets a requirement or reaches a certain level.
For example, the room is warm enough. This means the temperature is acceptable. There is no problem.
Another example. She is tall enough to reach the shelf. This means her height is sufficient for that action.
And one more. I have enough money to buy this. This means you don't need more. You already have what is required. Now, let us talk about the structure, because this is where many learners make mistakes.
There are two main patterns. The first one is with adjectives.
In this case, the structure is adjective plus enough.
For example, tall enough, strong enough, fast enough.
So we say, he is strong enough to lift the box. We don't say, enough strong. That is incorrect.
Yes, this is very important. Enough comes after the adjective, not before it. Let us build a few more examples. The water is hot enough to drink. The test is easy enough to understand. She is experienced enough to handle the job.
In all of these examples, the adjective comes first and enough comes after it.
Now let us look at the second pattern, which is with nouns.
Here, the structure changes. It becomes enough plus noun.
For example, enough time, enough money, enough space.
So we say, "I have enough time to finish this." There is enough food for everyone.
And again, the position is very important. Enough comes before the noun.
So let us summarize this clearly. With adjectives, adjective plus enough. With nouns, enough plus noun.
A helpful way to remember this is to think about quality and quantity.
Yes, adjectives describe quality, so enough comes after. Nouns describe quantity, so enough comes before.
Now let us look at another important pattern. Enough is often followed by to plus a verb.
For example, she is old enough to drive. He is tall enough to reach the top shelf.
In these sentences, the meaning is positive. The condition allows the action.
This is the opposite of to. With to, the action is not possible. With enough, the action is possible.
Let us compare directly. The box is too heavy to carry. The box is light enough to carry.
In the first sentence, there is a problem. In the second sentence, the situation is acceptable.
Now, let us also talk about a very common form, which is not enough.
Yes, this means the amount is below what is needed.
For example, I do not have enough time. This is not good. It means you cannot complete something.
Another example, this room is not big enough. Again, there is a problem because the requirement is not met.
So you can think of it like a scale. Enough means you reach the level. Not enough means you are below the level.
And that completes the basic idea of enough. It's about balance. It's about meeting a standard.
Now that we understand all three words separately, let us bring them together and compare them directly.
This is where everything becomes much clearer, because you can see how the meaning changes with small differences.
Let us start with a simple example. It is very hot. It is too hot. It is hot enough.
Now let us break this down. It is very hot is just information. It tells you the temperature is high, but there is no problem.
It is too hot means there is a problem. The heat is more than acceptable.
And it is hot enough means the temperature is acceptable. It's exactly what is needed.
So, with one adjective, we get three completely different meanings.
Let us try another example. The bag is very heavy. The bag is too heavy. The bag is light enough.
In the first sentence, you are just describing the weight. In the second sentence, the weight creates a problem. In the third sentence, the weight is acceptable.
Here's one more example with ability. She is very tall. She is too tall. She is tall enough.
Again, the meanings are different. Very tall is neutral. Too tall suggests a problem, depending on the situation. Tall enough means she meets a requirement.
So now let us give you a simple memory formula.
Yes, this is very useful. Very equals information. Too equals problem. Enough equals correct amount.
You can also think of it like this. Very describes. Too warns. Enough confirms.
This is a simple way to organize everything in your mind.
And once you remember this, you can quickly choose the correct word when you speak.
So whenever you are unsure, ask yourself one question. Am I just describing something, pointing out a problem, or saying it is acceptable?
Your answer will tell you whether to use very, too, or enough.
And that is the foundation for using these three words correctly in everyday English.
Now, let us move to something very practical. We're going to look at common mistakes that many English learners make when using very, too, and enough.
Yes, and this part is important because even if you understand the rules, small mistakes can still happen when you speak quickly.
Let us start with the first mistake, which is about the position of enough.
Many learners say something like, I am not enough good at English.
This sounds close, but it is incorrect. The correct sentence is, I am not good enough at English.
So remember the rule. With adjectives, enough comes after the adjective, not before it.
Let us look at a few correct examples. She is strong enough to lift the box. This task is easy enough to finish today.
And the incorrect form would be enough strong or enough easy, which you should avoid.
The second mistake is using to in positive situations.
For example, someone might say, the movie was too good.
This can sound confusing because to suggests a problem. It sounds like the movie was so good that it created a negative situation.
In most cases, it is better to say, the movie was very good or really good.
So use to only when there is a real problem or a negative result.
The third mistake is confusing too much and too many.
This is related to countable and uncountable nouns.
Use too much with uncountable nouns, such as water, time, or noise.
For example, there is too much noise in this room. I have too much work today.
And use too many with countable nouns, such as people, books, or emails.
For example, there are too many people here. I received too many messages this morning.
This is a small difference, but it is very important for accuracy.
So if you remember these three mistakes, you will avoid many common errors in everyday English.
Now it's time to practice together. This is where you can check your understanding.
We will give you situations with two options. Choose the correct one. Try to say your answer out loud before we explain it.
Let us begin with the first situation. You are eating at a restaurant. The soup tastes good, but it needs more salt.
Option A, the soup is very salty. Option B, the soup is not salty enough.
Take a moment to think.
The correct answer is option B. Not salty enough means it does not reach the required level.
Situation 2. You receive your bill and it is much higher than you expected.
Option A, this is very expensive. Option B, this is too expensive.
Think about the meaning.
The correct answer is option B. Too expensive shows that it is a problem.
Situation 3. You watch a movie and enjoy it a lot.
Option A, the movie was too interesting. Option B,
The movie was very interesting.
Choose your answer.
The correct answer is option B. Very interesting gives positive information. Too interesting would suggest a problem.
Now, let's move to a travel situation. You're packing your bag and it is difficult to lift.
Option A, the bag is too heavy. Option B, the bag is very heavy.
Take a moment.
The correct answer is option A. Too heavy means it creates a problem.
Now, let's try a work situation. You have enough time to complete your task before the deadline. Choose carefully.
The correct answer is option B. Enough time means you meet the requirement.
Now let us look at a short real-life style dialogue to make this more natural.
Imagine you were talking to a colleague about a meeting room.
You might say, "This room is very small, but it is big enough for our team."
That sentence shows two ideas. The room is small, but it still meets the requirement.
Now, another example. You're talking about your schedule.
You say, I have too much work today, but I have enough time to finish the most important tasks.
Again, we see the difference. Too much work shows a problem, but enough time shows that something is still possible.
Let us do one more mini dialogue with food.
You say, "The coffee is too hot to drink right now, but it will be warm enough in a few minutes."
This clearly shows the transition from problem to acceptable condition.
These kinds of combinations are very common in real conversations.
So the more you practice, the more natural this will feel.
Now, let us move to the final part of today's episode, which is a quick recap.
We covered 3 important words. Let us review them clearly.
First, very. This is used to add intensity. It gives information and does not create a problem.
For example, the weather is very cold. This is just a description.
Second, too. This means more than needed, and it always suggests a problem.
For example, the weather is too cold to go outside.
Third, enough. This means the correct amount. It shows that something meets a requirement.
For example, the weather is warm enough to go outside.
So here's the simple rule to remember. Very equals information. Too equals problem. Enough equals correct amount.
If you keep this rule in mind, you'll be able to use these words correctly in most situations.
Now it's your turn to practice. Think about your day and make 3 sentences.
1 sentence with very, 1 with too, and 1 with enough.
Comment your sentences in the comments. We would really like to read them and see how you're improving.
And if this episode helped you, make sure to like it, share it with someone who is learning English, and subscribe to Talk Ava.
Your support helps us continue creating useful lessons like this for you.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.
See you next time on Talk Ava.